Hello out there and welcome to Your Next Mission video podcast. We have a very special show today focusing on exceptional families of the military. Our guests today are leading the way in connecting military families with disabilities and special health care needs from all branches of service to help navigate the DoD Exceptional Family Member Program. We'll be talking with a very special family, so please stay with us. We'll be right back.
Welcome to Your Next Mission video podcast, where we tell the stories of those who have served in the past and those who are serving today. From transition to financial wellness, VA benefits to mental health, we cover issues facing veterans, active military, and their families. Now here's your host, the 12th Sergeant Major of the Army and co-founder of the American Freedom Foundation, Jack L. Tilley.
Thanks for joining us, and thanks to all of our veterans, service members, and their families for your service to our great country. Now, before we get started, I personally want to thank our presenting sponsors, Navy Federal Credit Union, whose members are the mission, and Purdue Global, where you can start your comeback, and USA, whose mission is taking care of military community and their families, always. With additional sponsorship from Blue Cross Blue Shield FEP Dental, and Blue Cross Blue Shield FEP Vision. Together, they make your next mission happen. They love our veterans and families. I say it every week. We love them too. Today, we're talking with an exceptional families of the military, and I'm excited to welcome to the show a very special family, Austin Carrigg, CEO of the Exceptional Families of the Military, and her spouse, Sergeant Major Joshua Carrigg, Senior Enlisted Leader for the 60th Presidential Inauguration, and their daughter, Melanie. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, and thank you for coming on. We're excited to talk to you this morning. But before we do that, could each one of you tell the audience just a little bit about yourself? And Austin, we'll start with you.
Yep. So I'm obviously a military spouse. I'm also the mom to 3 wonderful children. Our kids are 24 all the way down to Melanie, who's 12. We are an EFMP family, so everybody in our family, minus our service member, is enrolled in EFMP. And we've taken a journey that I think a lot of other people haven't, and it's through our life as an EFMP family that I think a lot of us, including our adult kids, have really found who they're supposed to be in the world. So we are excited to share all of that with you.
Well, thank you so much. Sergeant Major, I was going to go back to you again. Sergeant Major, go ahead. How about yourself?
Yep, I'm Sergeant Major Joshua Carrigg. I've been in the Army for about 22 years. We originally hail from Tucson/Marana, Arizona. And all the PCSs and transitions and deployments that come with 22 years of service. We're excited to be on the show, and thank you for having us.
Well, I appreciate it. I see Melanie, does she know sign language? I guess she knows sign language.
Yes, she's deaf.
Yeah. Only thing I remember from sign language was no and yes and silly. I think of a silly like this. It's been a while.
She doesn't really know what no means. We try to tell her no, and she always tells us yes. So we're good.
Okay. Hey, Austin, let's begin with you. Tell us about your family, specifically about your daughter, Melanie. Tell the audience about Melanie. Talk about Melanie, therefore.
So Melanie's really great. I want to say she's probably the center of our entire family, and that wasn't intentional. We brought her home. She's adopted. We adopted her from Hawaii. So we lived in Boston. This is the longest continental U.S. flight from here to California, and I still had to fly to Hawaii to pick up a baby by myself and bring her home. And we brought her home on our oldest son's 10th birthday. So we really started all over. And I think it's because of that, her older brothers have found somebody that needed them, and who they were no longer the person who needed assistance, right? It was, I have this baby sister who has Down syndrome, and so they found this amazing little human that needed them. And so she has become the center of really our lives unintentionally. She was born with Down syndrome, and she has congenital deafness. We don't know why she's deaf. We just know she can't hear. And a heart defect. And so I remember when the adoption agency called, they told us they had a baby with Down syndrome. And the next phone call was and she's deaf. And I remember thinking, I'll just slap some cochlear implants on. We can fix that. They said she needed a small surgery on her heart when she was 9 months old. And I'm like, that's easy because then we'll just have a baby with Down syndrome. And I think we're really lucky. We didn't know then what we know now, which was that was just a very small part of the medical challenges she would have moving forward. And so in 2020, she had a catastrophic stroke that left her paralyzed completely on her right side. And it's really been a journey. We know that our team doesn't have a real great answer for why she has all of the medical conditions she has. Everybody thinks there's another underlying condition contributing because you can't have this many genetic diseases, and yet she does. So she's what her brothers call our little unicorn. In the rare disease world, they call you a zebra, and they're like, she's not a zebra. She's definitely our unicorn. So despite all of that, as you can see, she's like happy and thriving and great, just like a unicorn.
Yeah. I don't know if you know it or not. I don't know. I think I may have talked to you about it, but I also have a special needs son. He is Brian. Had pneumococcus meningitis, left him temporarily blind, deaf, 20 to 30 convulsions, and of course all that stuff came back. He can see now. He hears out of his left ear, and the seizures he had it stopped really. Maybe he has one or two, maybe a month or something like that. But so I went through that whole process, and that's why I'm really interested to have you on the show to talk about those things. I think there's a lot of people that have no earthly idea the kind of things that people with exceptional children have that they have to go through. So what led you to start your nonprofit, Exceptional Families in the Military? What led you to start that program or start that nonprofit?
So in 2020, I was asked to testify before the House Armed Services Committee on EFMP representing families. And I woke up the next day with thousands of messages across my social media platforms. And it was really 3 key takeaways. Your story is like my story. I don't feel alone. I need help. Or how do I help fix this? And I realized that we all needed a place to connect and to support each other, but also a place so that we weren't all asking for fixes and then those fixes were, being played against each other. We know there are little pockets of advocates across the military, and what we were finding was happening is I would ask for this legislative language and somebody else would ask for something else, and then really the best parts of both of them got taken away when they merged them together. So I wanted it to be a central place where we could listen to families and get the problems from families, the solutions from families, so that we can then take them to the DOD and DHS for the Coast Guard and say, these are the solutions that families need by families for families. And that's where the idea came from.
Yeah, I don't know about you, but because my son got pneumococcus meningitis at about 15 months old. And quite frankly, I'm going to be honest with you, I never really talked much about it with my chain of command. And I didn't say much about it. I always thought I had a dumb thought in the back of my head that if it affect my promotions and all that other stuff, and of course it never did. I was pretty lucky, but yeah, there's a lot of challenges. I think some people that don't have exceptional children have that people have no earthly idea about, especially your chain of command. Sergeant Major, I can really relate to this question. Having an exceptional family must require certain considerations with PCS, and I know there are so many challenges out there when you have to PCS. Could you tell the audience a little bit about some of your challenges that you had when you tried to PCS or when you did PCS?
Yes, SMA. So I mean, just in a normal PCS, I know it's super, stressful and very challenging to begin with. Now when you compound that with, having to find the appropriate care, whether it's medical or educational care on the other side, and then, even just going through the EFMP process can be kind of difficult. Some portions are not super transparent. It is getting better, but just trying to set up all those services on the other end. It can be super stressful. And then once you arrive to the other installation, if everything's not in place, sometimes it can take upwards of 6 to 9 months to get some of the care required for your loved one. So, as this military itself is trying to get better, I think we do have some things we can still improve on.
I tell you what, they're probably doing the same kind of thing now, but what I did was I always PCS first. I got on the ground, made sure all those things were there before I ever brought my family over there to make sure they're in place. Because just what you just said, you don't want that 5 to 6 to 8, 9 month period of time where you're sort of hustling around there. So I want to make sure that everything's there. And it's really a challenge because a lot of times you don't have it on the installation. You have to go out into the civilian community to get those assistance that you need.
Correct. And in the last, the last few years, again, they've kind of taken leaps and bounds of different, approval mechanisms. We've never actually had the opportunity for me to go forward. Really, one of our family is probably one of the more complex in DoD. And so really, having me at home so I can get everything together on this end has been paramount. We've never really had that opportunity. In the future, it may come. But yeah, just, trying to set everything up via phone. And actually, most of the time, except for this most recent move, we were still coordinating for all that stuff, housing and everything in transit. You'd be surprised of how many phone calls we received in transit from the installation, whether it's the EFMP office or whether it's the housing office saying like, hey, we're not tracking you guys for coming. We can't have you come. You're not authorized to come. And at the end of the day, I'm like, hey, these are orders. I'm coming, so you can either help me get situated or we'll figure it out when I get there and take it to the commands or that we need to once we arrive. So it is slowly getting better, but definitely some improvements.
Yeah, one of the things I think always was a problem is if you don't, and this may be I think it's okay, if you don't have an exceptional family member that you're associated with and you understand the issues, sometimes people want to go by the regulation to say, wait, let's use some common sense when working those things out. That drives me crazy. So I know we're going to talk about it in a few minutes, but I always made sure that the chain of command knew when I was coming to that organization about the issues that I had with my son. So they knew, I'm a soldier, do what I got to do, but they need to understand I've got to take care of my family first when I get there. You want to comment?
Oh, no, 100%. 100%. And, as I've gotten, higher in rank, my assignments have got more pinpoint compared to just, an installation. So it does make it easier, even with the sponsorship program to kind of, get in communication with the chain of command early. For the most part, every chain of command's, been super happy to have us and very understanding and been there to try to help. But yes, it does have its challenges, especially for the junior enlisted, to where they really don't have that pinpoint assignment. And so, making that communication up front is sometimes challenging.
Yeah. Aren't you 11 Bravo? Are you 11 Bravo?
That's the only MOS, but yes, I'm 11 Bravo.
Wait a minute. Well, the problem is you're a warfighter. And when you get on the ground, they expect you to get out and start doing those things. So I just go back to Austin here a little bit. It puts a tremendous amount of stress on Austin and your family to do things, because I know that there's so many things that I missed that I wasn't there to help my spouse out. So I know, again, firsthand, I know the challenges that come along with that. I want to talk about experience that you had going to UCLA and Los Angeles, but first, there's always a best first with everything. But first, we need to take a quick break, so don't you guys go anywhere. Melanie, it looks like she's taking a nap. Don't go anywhere, we'll be right back. This is your Next Mission video podcast with me, your host, Jack L. Tilley, 12th Sergeant Major of the Army. And if you're enjoying this discussion, I don't know you are, because we're talking about our family in the military. We're talking about young kids that have disabilities, special kids that mean so much to all of us. Please like us. Click on that subscribe button below. And be sure to click on the bell to receive notifications of all of our upcoming video podcast releases. I'll be right back after word from our presenting sponsors.
You're watching Your Next Mission video podcast, proudly presented by Navy Federal Credit Union, the most trusted credit union owned by members of the military community, serving all branches of the armed forces and their families. Learn more at NavyFederal.org. Their members are the mission. Purdue Global. You're ready for a comeback, and with Purdue Global, you can do more than take classes. You can take charge of your story, of your career, of your life. Earn a degree you can be proud of and get an education employers respect. Start your comeback at purdueglobal.edu. And USAA.
A promise is a trust not to be broken, whether spoken with an oath
Solemnly swear.
or sealed with a pinky. And after 100 years, we're still taking care of the military community and their families. That's our mission, always.
Now back to your host, the 12th Sergeant Major of the Army, Jack L. Tilley.
Welcome back. We're talking with Austin Carrigg, CEO of Exceptional Families of the Military, and her spouse, Sergeant Major Joshua Carrigg. Senior Enlisted Leader for the 60th Presidential Inauguration, and their daughter, Melanie. Before we get back to our discussion, I want to let you know about a way to support the work we're doing on behalf of our veterans and their families here at the American Freedom Foundation. If you have a used vehicle you're planning to get rid of or property you don't have any plans for, you can donate it. Visit our website at americanfreedomfoundation.org/donate and click on the vehicle donation button or the home donation button to support our work. We really appreciate your support. Austin, during our prep call, you talked about your experience at UCLA. Would you tell the audience a little bit about that experience? I'm waiting to hear about it.
Yeah, so in 2020, in the throes of COVID, July of 2020, my husband received orders to UCLA. And it became very clear to us very quickly that the medical care our daughter needed wasn't available. We did a family needs assessment, which every family should do. It's at your ACS, your community service, EFMP worker can do that. And that family needs assessment also said from the installation that they couldn't find the care either. So they had reached out to the gaining installation, the installation here, and nobody could find the care that EFMP said was available. We took it to EFMP and said, they said the care is unavailable. And what we were told is it's been overridden by the Office of the Surgeon General, you have to go. And so against medical advice, we had documentation from infectious disease that it was dangerous for our daughter to be moved because she also has an immunodeficiency. In the middle of COVID, this was before vaccines, this was before treatment, this was when we didn't know much about it. We were all washing our groceries right before we brought them in the house because we had no idea what COVID was. And we were lucky that the military did support us in a lot of ways that we'd never anticipated. So they paid to put us on the plane. We didn't have to drive. They got us there as quickly as possible. And when we landed, it took us 6 months to get all of the medical care that was available. The problem is the night before the movers came, our daughter had at the time what they thought was a seizure, but she had bilateral cochlear implants and they were not MRI compatible. So the only way to know what was going on in her brain was to do an MRI because what they said was the EEG was telling them there was a structural anomaly. So we flew to LA because EFMP said we couldn't stop the move, thinking our daughter had a brain tumor. And it took 6 months to get the pediatrician to put in the necessary referrals, to get into ENT, to get an appointment, to take those implants out, to do that MRI, to tell us what was wrong. And so we took her in for a same day MRI and we thought we were going to bring her home. And she seemed a little weird coming out of it. So they kept her in the hospital overnight just to make sure she was okay. But they told us that day that she had moya and not a brain tumor. So we were Googling like one does because they called us from the OR trying to figure out what is moya. And because of COVID, my husband couldn't be there. So it was her and I in the hospital. The very next day, she had a catastrophic stroke that left the entire right side of her body paralyzed. She was really touch and go for a while. Even though it was COVID, the neurosurgeon said, you need to call your husband and I need to have a conversation with you guys right now. And he told us this is going to go one of three ways. She's going to continue to have strokes and those cascade of strokes will lead to death. We can wait a few days and then we'll do surgery to create bypasses into her brain. And maybe if we're lucky, we can get a few months. And my husband's like, please, can I see her? Because remember, she went in for a same day appointment. She was supposed to come home. Nobody got to say goodbye. And the doctor said, the hospital president said that if she were imminently dying on the operating room table, then maybe they could come say goodbye. So she made it a couple of days and the doctor's like, we have to do it now. We have to take her into surgery now. And it was a 21 plus hour surgery that she had to have. The hospital waiting room for the OR closed at 8:00. Nobody could be there after that because of COVID. And so we all rented an Airbnb across the street because if they were going to have the opportunity to say goodbye because we were losing her, we wanted them to be close enough to be able to get there in time before they lost her. And that morning, taking her into the OR, the anesthesiologist told me, I don't think she's coming out. So we all went into this thinking that this was it, that they probably weren't going to be able to say goodbye. And as you can tell, she's a fighter and she made it through and she's had a miraculous recovery, but it was the hardest thing that I can tell you we have experienced in our lives. I mean, the thought that you're going to lose your child, and I got to be there. my husband, my sons, my oldest was in college, my other one was in high school. They said goodbye to her for a single day for an MRI. And then they're sitting there thinking they may never see her again, and they never got to say goodbye.
Oh my goodness. Those are, I tell you the truth, I don't know what to say. I just, God bless you. You're a fighter, that's for sure. Sergeant Major, does your chain of command help in those kind of circumstances? I mean, is there something they do or did do to assist you at that time when you was PCS, and they help you out in any way?
So I actually tell you what, when I was at UCLA, my whole command, all the way up from my brigade, all the way up to reserve command, all the way up to at the end of the point, we ended up getting a phone call from the SMA, Mike Grinston, saying, "Hey, you take care of your family, we're going to take care of you."
Yeah.
And so I would say, at that point, the whole Army, wrapped their arms around our family, and they helped us get from UCLA, life flighted to Boston, and then behind the scenes, working with the SMA and Sergeant Major Atkinson and HRC to really get us on a compassion assignment that meets the needs of our family. We actually ended up moving right back to DC, which we PCS from originally. And so really that worked. We were able to fall back in on our care. We almost cried when we found out we were coming back because, we had our pediatrician back, and, and so that was a very, very happy moment for us. And so, yes, the chain of command wrapped their arms around us, and then I was accepted, back into the military district of Washington. And that whole chain of command was very supportive of everything that's happened and everything that needed to happen to get us the care we need.
Now, I don't know how many years you got in the Army, but does it look like you're going to PCS again sometime? Or are you going to stay there until you retire? What's the...
So being a warfighter, being an infantryman, that's a complex question. So I've talked to Sergeant Major Atkinson, the CSM for HRC, and as per him and his team, we have one of the most complex families in DoD. I've been selected now for Sergeant Major, and hopefully, one day CSM. When that becomes available and when those assignments become available, we really have to, at this point now, kind of pick, for the most part, if I stay CONUS in the military, I'll probably stay in the DC area due to care. So a lot of my CSM assignments, as per him, and my wife graciously told him, "Please send me to Korea." And she really told the one guy who could.
Yeah.
But he pretty much told us that my career, the remainder of my career, CSM and SGM would really bounce back and forth between CONUS and LCONUS to ensure that I meet those gates required for my MOS. And so we're prepared to do that. And I make sure that Sergeant Major Vern Daly, the MDW Sergeant Major, he's tracking all that stuff, and he coordinates the stuff for our family with Sergeant Major Atkinson team as well.
Yeah. Well, the one thing I was going to tell you is I know you laughed when you said Korea. The good thing about Korea, it's a one-year assignment, and then you come right back. But what that does do, though, it puts a lot of stress on Austin for that 1 year to take care of your child. So I know that's, I almost had to do the same thing. I almost had to do a one-year assignment. They was going to send me to Germany. They had no medical care there. My wife couldn't go. So I was going to think 2 years is my assignment. I was going to stay 2 years, and she was going to stay in the States at Fort Knox at the time. And luckily, they changed my assignment. I went to Korea for a year, and then I came right back to Fort Knox, which made it pretty good. Hey, this is a great topic to talk about, and a lot of people that I'm sure are listening can relate in some ways to what you're going through. But this is big for us, and it's important for us to tell our audience and tell the Army and tell the military and tell DOD about these kind of issues. Do you ever put out any articles or anything in your local paper about exceptional family members? I was just thinking about that sort of talk about those issues. I mean, because there's so many people that just don't know much about what you are going through or what people with exceptional kids go through that just aren't aware of those issues. So anyway, just a thought for. We got to take another short break, but I want to talk about some of the financial insecurity with the exceptional family members face when we come back. So stay right there. We'll be right back. Now here's a word from one more of the organizations that help make this show possible.
You're watching Your Next Mission video podcast, brought to you in part by Blue Cross Blue Shield FEP Dental, Blue Cross Blue Shield FEP Vision.
Part of transitioning out is that dental and vision insurance breaks off from your medical insurance.
Vision and dental is very important to be able to enjoy your retirement.
Blue Cross Blue Shield makes the transition so much easier.
Now back to your host, the 12th Sergeant Major of the Army, Jack L. Tilley.
Welcome back. We're blessed to be here today with Austin Carrigg, CEO of Exceptional Families of the Military, and her spouse, Sergeant Major Joshua Carrigg, Senior Enlisted Leader for the 60th Presidential Inauguration, and their daughter, Melanie. Remember, this is your show. We want to know, there's so many issues out there that directly affect you. We want to know about them. So we can address each and every one of them. So please, as I said many times, reach out to me. Tell me what topics you'd like us to cover. You can call or text me at 844-424-1134. Send me an email at SMA Tilley at yournextmission.org. And guess what? I'll reach back out to you. Austin, do a lot of exceptional family members struggle, with expenses associated with, financial expenses, especially if you have an exceptional child?
Yeah, so what we hear from families is that they do experience financial insecurity, but for reasons that are very different than their peers. So if you receive home health care, like we do for our daughter, she requires nursing care in the home. She doesn't go to school because of her medical conditions. The spouse is actually not allowed to work, or the primary caretaker. So what we see is that in our case, I can volunteer my time, but I can't have a paid job, which means that there's no second income. And we talk in America about how really you are required to have a second income for a family to be comfortable. If you're an active duty service member that's a single parent, you're required to separate from the military. If it's your spouse who becomes the EFMP member and needs medical care and they need that nursing care in the home, that service member is required to separate because they are considered the primary caregiver and they cannot be employed. And then you add on all of the other things. So co-pays for medications. If you are unable to get certain medications from the MTF or you live somewhere where there's not one, they're paying a lot in prescriptions. I know when we were in Boston, we were paying about $500 a month out of pocket just for co-pays for medications to keep her alive. Her specialty meds now are even more than that. Then you have to pay to park at the hospital. This is something that people don't think about, but Children's National here in DC, it's $23 a day to park. So you are paying every single time you go. If you have PT, OT, speech, those things add up if you're going multiple times a week. And then you add in all of the gas. We have families who are literally 99 miles away from the nearest medical facility. And that is not covered under TRICARE until you're over 100 miles away. So they're paying for all that gas and the vehicle maintenance and all of the things that we don't think about. And it adds up, especially when the spouse can't be employed, maybe because they have nursing or because there are too many appointments. Sometimes people don't want to hire you if you're like, I want to work, but I have 12 appointments a week. How do you do that? And so our families face that for the same reason. And we go and we talk about financial insecurities and problems with our financial advisors on base, and they're really great. But they've even said to us when we've had these conversations, like, you guys are budgeted well, you just can't make more money appear where it doesn't exist.
Yeah. That's a heck of a problem. Do you have other exceptional family members, like a group of people that have exceptional kids that get together and talk about those kind of issues?
So at EFM, we have peer-to-peer support groups. So we serve 15,000 people across our peer-to-peer support groups. So they talk about it a lot. What we found is that it's hard for a lot of our families to get together. We do have some groups that are select to specific installations, but it's hard for them all to sync up their schedules. We might get a group together for an Easter egg hunt one time, 1 year, but then it's a long time before they see each other again. But they're very quick to shoot each other a message and say, I need help. Where can I find this? And I think that's what we see more. And we actually recently launched a grant program at EFM for families specifically to meet this need. So we give them $30 a day for each medical appointment they have, or for an inpatient admission, to help pay for the parking and to help pay for the secondary meal or the child's meal. It's not a lot, but for some families, it's the difference between, can I afford to go to the appointment today or not? And that all came because they were talking to each other in the groups, and we realized that this was a widespread systemic issue across all the branches.
Yeah. Do you go to they have family forums? Do you go to family forums and talk about exceptional family members at the family forums?
So a lot of times the family forums are invite only. And so we are not in a place where we normally get the invite. We do get a lot of invites when it comes, like members of Congress will say, come tell us about your experiences. And I'll obviously go in and share that with them. But it's, it's a little bit different sometimes in the military side. It's like, where are you at? Is there a family forum? What demographic are they trying to meet? So we go when we're invited, but they want to hear from a lot of people, not just us.
Yeah, that's for sure. Oh, golly. One last question there. Do you get involved with Association of United States Army and talk to them a little bit about those kind of issues? Because it always seems that there's large organizations sometimes that will reach out and help you if they can anyway.
So what we've found is that the EFMP program is very misunderstood. The DoD is a great PR machine. I give them that. They are the best at PR. And so a lot of outside organizations think like, oh, you're EFMP, the DoD, no matter what branch you are, they're taking care of you. And so they don't realize that these problems exist. Or a lot of times I'm told, oh, well, have you talked to Wounded Warriors? And we're like, that's actually a different demographic, right? And we're, as EFMP families, largely in the military community, we're not considered caregivers. And so we have large organizations who, support caregivers, but those are caregivers for Wounded Warriors, which obviously is a very important thing. So we're kind of this weird space where people think that EFMP families are well taken care of. And I do believe that the DoD and the Army is trying, but we know that changes take time. And so in the meantime, it's very hard to get people to understand. I tell everybody I always spend 70% of every conversation trying to convince people there's a problem. And then the other 30%, I'm very quickly trying to tell them, here's all of the solutions. We just need help.
And just to kind of hit at your question in reference to like AUSA or some of the other major organizations, we have been working with George Washington chapter AUSA with their executive committee. I say we, I mean her. And really kind of their family forum and trying to assist them in some of the problems that we're seeing to help families, as well as some organizations like the Elizabeth Dole Foundation and stuff like that. So yeah, we've reached out and definitely trying to connect and just open the doors to just communicate the need for assistance.
Yeah, one more question there. Does DoD have an exceptional family member conference once a year or once every couple of years? I would think they do. They don't?
They do not. So the DoD has the Office of Special Needs, and right now things are very complicated because we're going through EFMP standardization, which is actually one of the things we asked for at the EFMP hearing. We want all the branches to be similar so that if we PCS to an area like we did in LA, Los Angeles Air Force Base could look at our packet instead of Fort Irwin, right? Because they're there. But because of that, they used to have, OSN did have an advisory board, and they still do, but nobody knows who's on the advisory board. And there's no way to know there's no way to know what they talk about. We just know there's an advisory board of EFMP families. We don't know what the demographic is. We don't know what they mean by EFMP, right? You could be EFMP because you have an IEP. You could be EFMP because you have ADHD, or you could be EFMP because you're like our little unicorn here. And so it's, what does that demographic look like on the board? Are you really hearing from people across all rank bands? Because that's the other thing we tell people a lot is, if our life is this hard, can you imagine what the life of an E1 and E4 is when they feel like they don't have a voice?
Yeah. It's really strange. It's really strange that they don't have some kind of forum once a year to talk about those issues. I've never really thought about that. I really, quite frankly, thought they did bring everybody together and talk about the issues, because you have a lot of military personnel that have exceptional children all over the military. I don't know what the numbers or the percentages are, but you would think to me that they'd pull them all together, or pull somebody from each installation to come to one point and say, hey, what's the issues? How do we work those issues out? Sergeant Major, was you going to say something? I didn't mean to cut you off.
So, we kind of hitting right back on the topic that we previously discussed in reference to AUSA and some of the other service, conferences. Really, my wife goes around, and tries to get invited to these conferences so that way she can speak eloquently with the senior service reps and their senior enlisted leaders, just to let them know, like, hey, here is a problem. You may not be seeing it. We have a demographic that could speak for your service. And then, like, hey, here's some proposed solutions for each service on what we can do to support our families. And so she really, AUSA in October, that's almost a whole family affair for us to go to. But then, she's trying to hit up, the Navy and the Air Force and the Coast Guard and the Marines, just to make sure that, she's communicating across the services, saying like, hey, you guys have a program. Your program is taking care of families. Here's some issues or shortfalls that her organization is seeing, and then here are some proposed solutions, and we can even get you in contact with the families who have these needs in that specific service if you want to discuss with them.
Yeah.
And the Air Force they did last year have a big event where they pulled all the EFMP workers in, and they had a conference. The problem there is the EFMP workers aren't living these experiences. So I applaud the fact that they pulled them all together, but really what they were missing were families, right? They should have brought a family from each installation and said, here's your seat at the table. We need to hear from you and the workers, because we know that their job is hard, but we know that our jobs are hard too.
Yeah, I got to tell you a story real quick. We're going to wrap it up in a minute. But Brian did not talk until he was 7 years old, and we took him to doctors and stuff. And I remember one doctor. It's sort of a funny story. I was in Germany, and he says, "Well," and Brian couldn't hear, and he said, "Well, here, let me give you some recommendations." And I said, "Yeah, okay. Well, I did that, and did that." And kept saying. And finally, I told the doctor, I said, "Take him home with you. Come back in a month and tell me what to do, because you're not really helping me out at all." Because I wanted him to go to total communication school where he learned to sign and then he learned a word. And they thought that was the craziest thing in the world. And really, quite frankly, that worked. So now I got you. There's a lot of, I'll just tell you that if I can ever help you in any way, I don't know how it would help you, but let me know. I mean, there's some things. I think they should have a board. I think next time I get around some of those guys, I may talk about that with some of them and see if we can get some traction. But I think they should have a board or a meeting once a year where they talk about those kinds of needs. And again, it's if you have an exceptional child that you're going through issues with or dealing with or taking care of, then make sure that they're on the board to talk about how we fix these kinds of problems, especially one with PCS. And that's really sort of foolish that they even put you in that kind of position. If someone wants to get in touch with you about or learn more about exceptional families of the military or really some kind of donation, do you have a website or a phone number they can reach out to you and talk to you about it?
We do. So it's exceptionalmilitaryfam.com. You can find us on all the social media platforms. And if you're still struggling to find it, I'm the only me out there. So if you find my name somewhere below, I'm sure, and you Google, it'll take you straight to our website. I think sometimes that's the easiest way and the way people find it the most simply.
Yeah, okay. Well, we appreciate that. Well, first of all, let me tell you that, first of all, this is an important discussion. It's important for people to talk more about children with exceptional family, our families with exceptional family members. But it's also important for us to help each other out as much as we can. So again, let us know if we can help you out in any way. First of all, this has been a great discussion. Any final thoughts, anything that you might have missed that you want to tell the audience? And this time we're going to start with the Sergeant Major. Any final thoughts? We'll let Austin go last there. She's got some good information. Go ahead. You got good information too. Go ahead.
Again, thank you for having us. Really, using this as well as other forums, just trying to get in the door. That seems to be the hardest problem. And then, once we're in the door, just communicating it, understanding that, I know 100% that the services are doing their best for their families. And they are approaching this with the best of intentions. And it is wholeheartedly appreciated by all. But, we're here to help. We have a demographic that's a little different than the normal demographic in the military. And we are here. If they have any questions or, if they have any questions for my wife, please don't hesitate to reach out. She tries to come with solutions, which is always what is always asked. Hey, we're always getting these problems, but no solutions. I promise you, for every problem that she is thinking or helping families with, she has a solution that can support everyone. So. Yeah. That's it for me, sir.
Well, I appreciate. I was going to tell Melanie. I was trying to remember. Let's see. My name is. My name is Jack. I don't know if she got that. Yeah, because yeah. Austin, do you have anything you want to say? Any final thoughts?
Yeah, so now that he's talked so well about me, I get to talk about him. I want to remind everybody, for a long time we heard about how enrolling in EFMP ruined your career. And I think that the two of you are clearly proof that that's not true. What we found my husband's career, right? But people say all the time, right? I don't want to enroll because it's going to ruin my career.
Yeah.
It may not be the career you thought. I'm sure that as an infantryman, my husband's career is not what he pictured when he was coming out of basic training, but he's been successful. And what's most important at the end of the day is that where care is available. We hear a lot of people say, but I really want to go overseas. And what I want to remind you is that I went somewhere with my child where care wasn't available because the military told us to. And we almost lost her. And you don't want to go somewhere where the military is telling you there is not care, because you want to be in a nice place overseas and face what we faced, because we have guilt over the choices we made and why we didn't figure out how to keep us behind and let him go ahead. You don't want to have to live with that by saying, I'm not going to enroll in EFMP because I want to go to Germany, and then something happens to your loved one and you have to hold that in your heart for the rest of your life. So you may think it's going to ruin your career, but there's proof in front of you that it doesn't, and use our experiences and the things that our daughter went through to make sure that it never happens to your family too.
Yeah, I would tell you that I never talked much about Brian. I guess I did when I got to be a first sergeant or something like that. But sergeant major and some of the others. In fact, I had an interview one time, and the general that I was interviewing with says, you had an exceptional family. Is that going to cause a problem? Why do you want to come here and work? And it was really sort of hesitant to take me, but he took me, and I was lucky enough to get through the assignment anyway, so that was good. Hey, again, thank you so much for what you guys are doing. And again, I'm not just saying that. If I can help you in any way, please let me know. Thanks a lot for just coming on the show with us.
No, we appreciate it. Thank you.
All right, thanks a lot. Thanks again to Austin and Sergeant Major Joshua Carrigg and their daughter Melanie for being with us. I'm Jack Tilley, 12th Sergeant Major of the Army, and you've been enjoying Your Next Mission video podcast. And thank you for joining us. Log on to our website at yournextmission.org and leave me a review. Hopefully it's a good one. While you're there, you can visit our nonprofit and corporate partners who have jobs and services available that can assist you in your transition from the military. And check out our job board in partnership with Recruit Military and Upline, where you can create your own personal profile that will match you just with the right job in real time. You can follow me on my personal social media pages, Facebook, X, Instagram, YouTube, LinkedIn, and Rumble. And if you like what we're doing with Your Next Mission, please click on that subscribe button below. And don't forget to click on the bell to receive notifications about our upcoming video podcast. Remember, we want to hear from you. Please leave me a message or send me a text at 844-424-1134, or send me an email at smatilley@yournextmission.org. Thanks again to Austin and Sergeant Major Carrigg and Melanie for joining us today. And I would just tell you that I got a wonderful son, exceptional family member son. Brian is his name, and he's going to have a birthday here pretty quick, and he's over 50 years old, and he's the highlight of my life. And learn about the people in your organization. Learn about kids that maybe have somebody in their family that does have some medical issues. The other thing I'll tell you about Brian, one of the things that always used to bother me, that when people come around my son that has a disability, they were sort of afraid to talk to him and sort of afraid to hug him or touch him in any way. They're no different than anybody else. They just have special needs that certainly you can help them with. Remember, we're all part of a family. We need to make sure that we certainly take care of each other. Thanks for watching, and thanks to New Mind Students of course, our sponsors, Navy Federal Credit Union, Purdue Global, USAA, Blue Cross Blue Shield FEP Dental, and Blue Cross Blue Shield FEP Vision. We appreciate all you do for our military. And as always, see you on the high ground. Hooah!
You've been listening to Your Next Mission, brought to you by the American Freedom Foundation. Learn more by visiting yournextmission.org.